The story begins in 1946 in Australia. It is night, and we see a van and a car driving along a quiet road. Inside the van, there are several sealed crates marked with a bank's insignia. Clearly, they are stolen goods being smuggled illegally. Among the group are Dylan Maddock, a ruthless gangster, and his three partners, Yannisik, Dylan's right-hand man, Sean Cullen, and Dwight Lewis. During the trip, something goes wrong. Dwight loses control of the van, and it plunges into a nearby river. The water is deep, and the vehicle, along with all the valuable cargo, sinks beneath the surface. Sean and Dwight barely manage to escape, swimming to safety. But Dylan is furious. Those crates contain something extremely valuable. Enraged, he immediately kills Dwight. Terrified, Sean suggests using a crane to pull the van out, but Dylan refuses. Heavy machinery would draw too much attention. Instead, he decides he will need a professional diving team, specialists who can work quietly and recover the goods without anyone finding out. For now, Dylan spares Sean's life. We then meet a small diving company run by only 3 people: Clara Bennett, who loves diving, Jimmy, a skilled diver, and their boss Ernie Morgan, who is now addicted to alcohol. The war has just ended, and life is hard. Business is slow, and Ernie may soon have to sell everything to pay off his debts. One afternoon, Clara and Jimmy are testing a new diving suit while Ernie sleeps off a hangover. Clara wakes him and tries to cheer him up. Ernie feels defeated. They have had no proper work for months and recently lost a major bridge contract. Even so, Clara reassures him that things will get better. That same day, Dylan Maddock and his partner Yanis Wojcik arrive, asking to speak only with the boss. From their behavior, it is obvious they are involved in something illegal. Dylan is a gangster with racist ideas, a patriarchal mindset, and cruel behavior. When he meets Ernie, they realize they both served in the war, Ernie in the Navy. After a brief conversation, Dylan offers him a special job, but first asks whether his team can handle it. Ernie assures him that his crew is the best there is. Dylan explains that a van sank in the river, but refuses to reveal what is inside, calling it confidential. He pays a large advance, promising to pay the rest once the crates are recovered, enough to solve all of Ernie's financial problems. His only conditions are no reports, no questions, and the team must bring up the crates. Desperate, Ernie accepts. When he tells his team, Clara feels uneasy. The job seems dangerous, and Dylan seems threatening. But Ernie reminds her that they have had no work for 4 months. The money could buy a new boat, fix their equipment, and even get modern diving suits. Reluctantly, Clara agrees, understanding Ernie's situation. Deep diving was her dream, and she trusts him, ignoring the danger ahead. The next day, they head to the riverbank where the van sank. Dylan greets Ernie warmly but belittles his crew, mocking Clara for being a woman and Jimmy for being Aboriginal. Ernie defends them, insisting they are the best divers he knows. Dylan questions them both. Jimmy proudly says he has spent half his life in the water, while Clara boldly responds that being a woman does not make her weak. She is skilled and educated. Still mocking them, Dylan calls Ernie Captain Nemo. Ignoring him, Ernie orders Clara to dive first because he does not trust Dylan and his men, and does not want to leave Clara alone with them. He does this for her safety. Excited, Clara suits up with Jimmy. Their old, heavy diving suits are far from modern, slow, dangerous, and dependent on surface air. Nevertheless, they prepare to descend into the murky depths. Ernie operates the surface air pump, while Dylan and his men watch from the riverbank. Clara and Jimmy dive. The water is about 4 to 5 meters deep. After searching, they find the submerged van and keep contact with Ernie by radio. Clara reports that the van is lying on its side, making it impossible to lift without a crane. Dylan does not care, he only wants the crates. Underwater, they attach a guide rope to mark the van's location. Later, Clara tries to open the door, but it is locked and the keys are missing. The murky water limits visibility. Suddenly, she feels something, and moments later, a shark attacks her, striking her metal helmet. It does not pierce it, but it tears off her air hose, cutting off her oxygen. Ernie panics and orders Jimmy to find her. Clara, unconscious, drifts until Jimmy reaches her and pulls her up. For a moment, Ernie fears she is dead, but then she gasps for air. Dylan and his men remain unmoved. Later, Jimmy finds a shark tooth embedded in her helmet, proof of the attack, and everyone is stunned. Sharks do not belong in rivers, but this is a bull shark, one that can survive in both fresh and salt water. Dylan still refuses to believe it, raging at Ernie's team until Ernie declares that no one will dive again while the shark is still out there. Dylan now needs a shark hunter, someone like Quint from Jaws, and coldly says the cost will come out of Ernie's pay. After he leaves, Ernie praises Jimmy for saving Clara and asks if he saw what was inside the van. Jimmy says no, but that they will find out tomorrow. Ernie asks them to keep it secret. Later, he checks on Clara, who apologizes for failing, but Ernie reassures her that surviving is what matters. Meanwhile, Dylan and Giannis return, informing them that a fisherman will arrive in the morning to deal with the shark. That night, Dylan asks Clara why she risks her life for this job. She replies that she loves the ocean, and that Ernie gave her a chance when no one else would. When she questions his work, he refuses to answer, confirming he is involved in something illegal. Clara talks to Ernie and urges him to quit. Jimmy agrees, but Ernie says they cannot because they have no other work. The next morning, before the fisherman arrives, a police officer shows up. Dylan's men panic, but Dylan stays calm and lies, saying Sean was driving and no one was hurt, so they did not report it. He even mentions the shark attack, and the officer believes him and leaves. Shortly after, a fisherman named Bob arrives, talkative and confident. He promises to kill the shark. Jimmy joins him on the boat, and Dylan forces Sean to go as well. Bob prepares bait, and soon the shark circles them. Jimmy fires his gun, but the bullets lose speed underwater and do nothing. The shark slams into the boat, throwing them into the river. Jimmy and Sean manage to climb back aboard, but Bob is killed before their eyes. Horrified, Jimmy and Sean barely make it back to the riverbank alive. After Bob's death, everyone is terrified except Dylan, who laughs and mocks the situation. This enrages Clara, and Ernie insists they report everything to the police. Dylan interrupts him, but Ernie throws Dylan's money back at him, saying he will no longer work for him. Furious, Dylan and Giannis pull their guns, threatening to kill them if they refuse to finish the job. It is now clear that the crates contain something illegal. To stay alive, Ernie reluctantly agrees. He asks what Dylan plans to do with them afterward, and Dylan lies, saying he will let them go when it is over. The team resumes work, building a wooden sled to pull the crates from the water over a short distance. They also throw bait into the water as a decoy, hoping to distract the shark long enough to finish the job. When everything is ready, Ernie decides to dive himself, unwilling to risk Clara's life again. He says they are in this mess because of him, and he will be the one to end it. Soon after, Giannis, watching the decoy, reports that the shark has been caught in the trap. It is the perfect moment to dive. Ernie and Jimmy descend quickly, reaching the submerged van. Ernie opens the trunk, revealing the sealed crates, and they begin loading them onto the sled to be pulled up. They work fast, but the load is too heavy, so Jimmy suggests removing some crates. Meanwhile, Giannis realizes in horror that the shark has escaped the decoy. Clara warns the divers over the radio to be careful and signals Sean to start pulling the sled up. As Sean pulls the crates, Clara tells Ernie and Jimmy to hide inside the van, knowing the shark could return at any moment. To avoid the shark, they hide inside the van. But trouble returns when the sled gets stuck. They have to swim out and free it, which they manage to do. But the shark attacks again, severely biting Ernie's arm. Jimmy wounds it with a harpoon, freeing him. However, the shark returns and attacks Ernie once more. Clara pulls them up while Sean brings the sled to the riverbank. When Dylan sees the crates, he is thrilled. Inside them is pure gold. Meanwhile, Clara and Jimmy hold the dying Ernie. Clara begs to take him to a hospital, but Dylan does not care. To him, Ernie's life is worthless. Moments later, Ernie dies in Clara's arms. Grief turns into rage. Jimmy grabs a knife and lunges at Dylan's gang, but they have guns and Clara stops him. Giannis mocks him, throws down his gun, and challenges him with a knife. Jimmy throws his blade, hitting Giannis in the shoulder. Enraged, Dylan raises his gun to shoot, but Clara stops him, reminding him they are still needed. Some crates are still underwater. Dylan lowers his gun, knowing she is right. However, his greed makes one thing clear. Once the job is done, he will kill them. Blinded by greed, Dylan violently beats Jimmy in a fit of rage and then locks both him and Clara inside a tent overnight. The next morning, they are forced to recover the remaining gold crates. Dylan orders Clara to dive, and although Jimmy protests, he is ignored. Clara puts on the diving suit again and descends once more. Working quickly, she loads the last crates onto the sled. While the men pull them up, Clara explores the van and finds a hidden gun under the driver's seat, which she secretly keeps. But before she can surface, the shark returns, crashing into the van. Clara quickly traps it inside, sealing the doors and escaping just in time. When the crates reach the surface, Jimmy helps pull Clara out. She shows him the gun she found and hides it for the right moment. With the gold recovered, Dylan's job is finished. Now it is time to eliminate the witnesses. He tells his men they will chain them and sink them in the river. First, he orders them to dispose of Ernie's body. But before they can act, the police officer from earlier arrives. Seeing Ernie's body, he grows suspicious. Suddenly, Sean shoots him in the back, and chaos erupts. Jimmy attacks Giannis. Despite being wounded, the officer manages to kill Sean, but before he can fire again, Dylan kills him. At that moment, Clara pulls out her hidden gun and fires, wounding Dylan's hand and knocking his gun away. Dylan dives behind the van, bleeding and furious. Clara turns her attention to Jimmy, who is fighting Giannis. Before Giannis can kill him, Clara shoots him, but he is still alive and her bullets run out. Giannis attacks Jimmy again, trying to drown him, but Clara smashes his heavy diving helmet against his head, knocking him unconscious and throwing him into the water. Meanwhile, Dylan grabs another gun from the car. At the same time, the shark breaks free from the trapped van. When Clara sees Dylan approaching with the gun, she shouts for Jimmy to jump into the river. She does not know the shark is already loose. Dylan fires wildly as they dodge bullets and run. He chases them by boat, shooting non-stop. Cleverly, Clara rocks the boat, making Dylan lose his balance and fall into the water. Jimmy manages to get out, but Clara grabs Dylan's leg, trying to drag him under. Then Jimmy spots the shark approaching and screams for her to get out of the water. Clara reaches the riverbank, grabs a gun, and aims at Dylan. Dylan taunts her, calling her a coward who cannot pull the trigger. Clara hesitates, but she does not need to shoot. In a sudden, brutal moment, the shark lunges and devours Dylan, ending his reign of terror. Sometime later, Clara and Jimmy return to their old lives. They hand over all the recovered gold to the authorities, finally putting an end to the nightmare beneath the river. One day, two visitors arrive to meet Clara and Jimmy. One is Ernie's lawyer, who informs them that Ernie left a will stating that everything he owned would go to Jimmy after his death. In addition, the bank rewards them with 2,500 Australian dollars for returning the stolen gold to the authorities. With this money, they can rebuild their diving business and start over. And with this moment of hope, the film ends.